Hey, let's play a game. True or false? Since its founding in 1914, the Assemblies of God has welcomed dynamic and charismatic women to be part of the Spirit-empowered ministry based on its theological conviction. True or false? It's true. Initially, females were ordained as missionaries and evangelists without voting rights at the General Council, since such was regarded as the role of elders, exclusively reserved for men. True or false? True. In the early days, non-elder ordained women ministers could fulfill ministerial duties such as performing a wedding, funeral, baptism, or communion. True or false? False. They could not. The official recognition of female ministers' full ministerial rights took place in 1920, the same year the 19th Amendment was adopted, which granted women in the United States the right to vote. True or false? False. It wasn't until the 1935 General Council. Number 5, the Task Force for Women in Ministry, now known as the Network of Women Ministers, or NWM, was established in 1999 under Dr. George O. Wood. True or false? True. Hi, I'm your host, Sehi Duran, and welcome to Better Together podcast, a place for honest and gracious conversations for all co-laborers in Christ. Whether you're a husband, a father, a mentor, or ministry leader, your championing voice matters to women called to ministry. Thanks for making a difference. Today, let's talk about the things male allies need to know to better champion female ministers. As a result of Dr. Wood's intentional allyship, the number of credentialed ministers grew by 54% between 1999 and 2017, the year of his retirement as General Superintendent. Today, the NWM continues to train, support, collaborate with, and advocate for past, present, and future female ministers by helping them fully integrate into every level of ministerial leadership. The number of female ministers continues to increase under the newly elected General Superintendent, Doug Clay, who often publicly celebrates, normalizes, and champions female ministers. He grew up watching the spiritual leadership of his single mom, which greatly impacted his view on women in ministerial leadership. As a result, he appointed several female ministers to visible leadership platforms at local, district, and national levels. One of the notable female ministers he championed is Donna Barrett, the first elected female executive leader at the AG National Office since 2018. The intentional efforts of national leaders such as Dr. Wood and Superintendent Clay have significantly transformed the dynamics of ministerial leadership in the last decade. But the change has been much slower at the local level. For instance, according to 2020 AG statistics, women represented 1.9% of district officials, 9% of district executive presbytery, 6.7% of the sectional presbyters, and 5.8% of lead pastors. Despite these sobering numbers, the fact that competent women are serving in these influential roles is worth celebrating. Despite the setback in the early 1920s and an apparent dissonance between its professed egalitarian theology and lived experiences of female ministers, the AG has been making strides toward empowering both men and women called to ministerial leadership, with most notable changes occurring at the national level. According to the study that surveyed 15 female executive leaders at all levels in the AG, the results concluded that male mentors and advocates play a key role in helping women transition into higher leadership positions. The report also provided 3 critical changes necessary to transform the AG leadership culture. 1, train male leaders to develop aspiring male allies or advocates by affirming the value of gender-inclusive leadership. 2, incorporate female ministers to visible speaking opportunities and decision-making tables. 3, update the bylaws to reflect gender-inclusive leadership and normalize cross-gender interactions in mentoring, training, and networking opportunities, which often result in promotion or higher income. The strengths of the AG are its egalitarian position that supports women in ministry and training resources. The major setback is the gap between our theological conviction and practice. The greatest need is a group of courageous, countercultural, and intentional male champions who can help transform the organizational structure and leadership culture of the AG. So what are some things that our male allies or advocates must know so they can successfully champion female ministers? First, let's talk about some of the myths about women in leadership. Some of the challenges of gender-inclusive ministry stem from legitimate concerns that can threaten or question someone's integrity. However, unrealistic fear, concerns, or myths significantly decrease the value of mentoring people of the opposite sex in the leadership world. Some of these myths include the following. Women hinder the company's success. Diversity training resolves the tension between men and women at work. Men are naturally more qualified for higher leadership than women. Women are not ambitious in their careers. And human sexuality prevents ethical cross-gender mentorship. Let's unpack that one by one. Myth number 1, women hinder company success. A good analogy that defies such a myth comes from the story of Earl Tupper, the inventor of Tupperware during World War II, who unexpectedly discovered the importance of women's voice for his business success. Tupper initially worked as a contractor to make plastic parts for gas masks and Jeeps. However, when the war ended, he nearly lost his job due to the lack of demand. Fortunately, his resilience and creative mind led him to experiment with a few things that finally landed in the creation of Tupperware. The consumers, mostly women, loved them at first, but they soon called perfectly good products defective and returned them to the stores. Then came Brownie Wise, who helped change the business model to exclusive home party sales, which saved his business. Their success story demonstrates the importance of inviting female perspectives when making decisions for organizational success. Unlike the myth, women can positively impact their company's bottom line as they bring their unique perspectives and experiences to evaluate various challenges and offer creative solutions. Myth number 2, diversity training resolves the tension between men and women at work. During the 1990s, the diversity training focused mainly on engaging white men to include more women and ethnic minorities at work. Of course, pointing to white men as the cause of the leadership disparity had an adverse effect and didn't narrow the gap for women at work. Research shows that any diversity training that smells like legal compliance, targeting only the upper management, never works. However, the key to success is appealing to organizational success, mutual benefits, and increasing the awareness of gender disparity at work. Training that focuses on unconscious biases invites men and women to reflect on their own prejudices while working towards a common goal without finger pointing. So the assumption that diversity training can fix gender disparity at work is false. Myth number 3. Men are naturally more qualified for higher leadership than women. According to the 2015 Pew survey, most Americans view women as superior to men when it came to leadership qualities like honesty, fairness, and compassion. Interestingly, the same study discovered that male leaders receive far more respect than their counterparts because of the subconsciously elevated status of men's qualification. Such a perception, held by both men and women, forces women to perpetually prove their worth, knowledge, and abilities. Moreover, the stereotypes against female leaders constantly invalidate their leadership competencies by scrutinizing their work more harshly than men's. Good leadership is about character, skills, knowledge, and experiences, not gender. Myth number 4, women are not ambitious in their careers. Numerous studies concluded that even competent women hesitate to advocate for themselves, negotiate their salaries, or ask for promotions because society associates such forwardness or competitive spirit with the providence of men. That reluctance stems from the culturally conditioned upbringing that discourages girls from being competitive, assertive, and bold, and stay that way into adulthood. As a result, women struggle to find a balance between being confident and being liked. Contrary to the myth, a study conducted by Bain and Company reported that 43% of women aspire to top management early in their careers versus 34% of men. Understanding the silent ambition of women can help male mentors be more intentional in their training, advocating, mentoring, and empowering female mentees. Myth number 5, human sexuality prevents ethical cross-gender mentorship. This fear-driven myth ignores the purpose of gender-inclusive ministry and mentoring by reducing competent, high-capacity leaders into mere sexual beings. Intentional mentors and mentees conduct themselves with dignity and mutual respect and cooperatively establish healthy boundaries for successful outcomes. Those who effectively engage in non-sexual cross-gender mentorship view their sexuality as a sign of healthy human beings, use logic to avoid romantic encounters, and intentionally put each other's professional roles first before sexuality. The number of women is increasing in almost all professions, but until top leadership reflects gender equity, male leaders are uniquely positioned to help women understand and thrive in that world. Courageous and confident men can debunk myths surrounding female leaders and cross-gender mentorships by focusing on the mutual wins for their mentees, organizations, and themselves. In a male-dominated leadership world, men remain a crucial key to empowering women called to lead. Now that we've debunked 5 myths about women in leadership, let's briefly talk about the barriers to female leadership. What may be preventing them from advancing in leadership? Number 1, gender biases. Despite the growing number of female leaders, the contemporary leadership culture is still biased toward men. People often associate dominance, assertiveness, and competitiveness with men or managerial roles. Therefore, when women manifest these leadership characteristics that defy femininity or domestic image, it creates resistance. Gender biases, whether conscious, subconscious, or unconscious, negatively impact women's experiences related to hiring process, leadership pipeline, promotions, income, leadership style, and training or mentoring opportunities. Number 2, invisible hurdles. These barriers are difficult to detect since they exist in the forms of a glass ceiling, maze, broken rung, and gender-exclusive club. The invisible glass ceiling does not easily break by getting higher education or more job-related experiences and training. The invisible maze affirms women's ability to get to the leadership table independently, but it also indicates the messy and confusing process toward the top. A broken rung indicates the gap between the manager role and the entry-level position. Gender-exclusive club excludes women from various social settings, such as an informal meeting at a golf field or a lunch meeting. Number 3, Me Too or Church Too movements. Various independent studies unanimously concluded that these movements had an adverse effect on female leadership advancement. As a result, an increasing number of men express their discomfort or fear of working alone with a woman, and more companies have preferred to hire men than women to avoid potential sexual allegations. While such a politically charged movement can negatively impact the interactions between men and women at work, it is possible to reverse a gender-biased and fear-based organizational culture through intentional efforts by acknowledging positive examples of male-female professional relationships, while urging men to step up even more as part of the solution. Number 4, Billy Graham rule, also known as the Modesto Manifesto. Created in 1948 by Billy Graham and his 3 evangelical associates to uphold their morality and integrity during their ministry trips in response to some negative examples of their contemporary traveling ministers, they formed 4 core ideas to keep themselves accountable in the areas of financial abuse, sexual immorality, anti-church or anti-clergy attitude, and false publicity. However, over time, it was reduced to mean avoiding alone time with any woman. As a result, collaborative efforts and mentoring opportunities for increasing female ministry leaders are hindered. Now the big question. How can we remove these barriers? Let's talk about that in the next video and be part of the solution because we are better together.